4 Dark Masters. Yeah. So now we have the Dark Masters, who are the four, not the final four evil Digimon that they have to fight, because they have quite a few henchmen that they end up, that the Digidestined have to fight against. But we have the 4 Dark Masters, who after the Digidestined defeat Myotismon, this is when they go back to the digital world. Jedi calls them back to the digital world and says, well, there's these new evil Digimon that have popped up that are called Dark Masters, and they have been, remaking the digital world into how they wish. And they get to the digital world and they see that this is true. The digital world has basically been twisted. There's like the ocean, the forest, the desert or whatever, and then like something else, and there's like all these twisted things all the way up to the top of this mountain that is called Spiral Mountain. Now, the 4 Dark Masters are Metal Seedramon, Puppetmon, Machinedramon, and Piedmon. Piedmon is the strongest out of them, and given the order that they fight them in, I'm going to assume that Metal Seedramon is the weakest, but he rules the seas, and each of the Dark Masters have their own kind of a henchman, as I said. The first one that the Digidestined, well, when they first arrive in the digital world, after they return from the real world and defeating Myotismon, they end up meeting, the 4 Dark Masters show up and like they taunt them and kind of show off their powers and introduce themselves, trying to scare away the Digidestined. This does not work. I don't remember if they give the Digidestined like, you have this final chance to return back to your world. You can take your Digimon with you, but you must never return, and you must not do anything to interfere with our reign, type of a thing. I don't remember exactly, but like they taunt them. And Digidestined are able to escape with the help of Waymon, who is the giant whale Digimon that is their friend, and Piximon, again, Digimon that is their friend. Both of them will get their friend in the friend video. And what ends up happening is they escape them, and then they have to deal with Seedramon, Metal Seedramon. His henchmen are called the Deep Savers, is what they're called. I think they mostly end up having to deal with a Digimon that is called a Scorpiomon, who is a giant scorpion-like Digimon, as the name would imply. He kind of tries to trap the Digimon in like this little kind of like a little vacation hut thing, and Mimi and Joe do not get trapped, and Mimi and Joe then work together, and I think they're able to defeat Scorpionmon. And then, of course, the Digidestined have to then fight against Metal Seedramon. And if I remember correctly, I think it is Tai with the War Greymon that is able to defeat him, because there's something to do with the fact that like Greymon, like something to do with him is like able to defeat other Draymon, like dragon type Digimon or something along those lines. So Dramon, Draymon type thing. And he's able to defeat Metal Seedramon. He's not exactly a huge threat, but he is pretty strong, because if I remember correctly, he does destroy Waymon in the process of trying to destroy the Digidestined. And then the Digidestined move on, and they then have to try to defeat Puppetmon. In this time frame is they end up dealing with Puppetmon. Puppetmon actually ends up kidnapping TK. Puppetmon has his wind guardians, who one of them is Cherrymon, who is this giant cherry tree type Digimon, and the other one, kind of the other main one that they end up dealing with, is Kiwimon, which is this kind of a little bird type Digimon. Kiwimon ends up getting destroyed by Birdramon. But yeah, Puppetmon didn't particularly like him anyway, because he lied or something. And what ends up happening is Puppetmon has Cherrymon actually go, and this is when, after TK gets kidnapped, Puppetmon tries to play with TK, which TK doesn't want to play with Puppetmon, and Puppetmon has these 2 other Digimon that are in his house that he has, and one of them is a Floramon, and the other one is just like this little bird Digimon that I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it has like a bush for a tail. I'll put a picture of it here. It's actually kind of cute. I like Floramon too. Floramon's fun. And what ends up happening is they, those two Digimon kind of help TK escape, and TK makes his way back to Tai and the rest of the group, and they're all happy that he was able to escape, and they're proud of him. And this is when Matt starts doubting that maybe TK doesn't need me as a older brother anymore. And this is when Puppetmon sends Cherrymon to talk with Matt, and this is when Cherrymon kind of tricks Matt into thinking that Tai is trying to replace him in regards to being TK's older brother. This is not true. Tai is not trying to do this at all, but this does result in when Matt and Tai fight. This is one of the main times where we see the two of them fight and argue, and they actually come to blows. This is also when the homeostasis comes along, possesses Kari, and then they get the whole backstory as to why they were all chosen to be Digidestined. Then Puppetmon doesn't like that Matt didn't do what he had wanted Cherrymon to make Matt do. And then, if I remember correctly, Puppetmon, what is it? What ends up happening is the rest of the group, this is when they all split up. Matt goes his own way with, Garurumon, Mimi, and Jogo one way, and then Tai, Sora, Izzy, and TK and Kari all go another way. And Tai's group end up making their way to Puppetmon's house. And in the house, they end up, Puppetmon they kind of use Puppetmon's house against him because it's kind of a dangerous house. I mean, they kind of use it against Puppetmon, like fire cannons out at Puppetmon. And as I said, Puppetmon is actually kind of one of the Dark Masters that kind of gets a little bit of sympathy from me, because Puppetmon kind of just wanted to have friends, but he didn't understand the fact that you can't always force your friends to do exactly what you want them to do. They have to be free to choose to be your friend or not be your friend, or to play with you or not play with you, which is one of the things that TK kind of tries to teach him. Doesn't go over very well. Puppetmon doesn't like being told what to do, of course. And what ends up happening is Puppetmon gets, the kids get knocked out of the house, and Puppetmon gets inside. And then he basically turns the house into a giant robot. Yeah. And he, fights the kids in that. And they're able to do a fair amount of damage. They fight against the giant house, and then they're able to do a fair amount of damage to him. And Puppetmon then kind of, limps off into the forest. And, Cherrymon had warned Puppetmon to be careful against the Digidestined, and he felt insulted by this. So what ends up happening is he, Puppetmon ends up, he had asked Cherrymon, what is it that they have that I don't? And it was friends. It is, they have real friends as opposed to the ones that Puppetmon forces to be his friends. And Cherrymon, I think Cherrymon does end up getting destroyed. I don't remember specifically if he ends up getting destroyed by Puppetmon himself, or if, Puppetmon destroyed him in anger because it didn't work the way that he wanted it to in regards to having Matt and Tai destroy each other. And then when Puppetmon lies there kind of, dying after he got attacked by Tai and his group, Matt shows up, and he delivers, Metal Garurumon is able to finish, deliver the final blow to him, and that destroys Puppetmon. And then as each of the Dark Masters get destroyed, their kind of realm, the thing that they represent that's wrapped around Spiral Mountain, kind of disappears. So when Seedramon was destroyed, the ocean disappeared from around Spiral Mountain. When Puppetmon's destroyed, the forest disappears. Puppetmon's ones I said are called the Wind Guardians, and then of course Metal Seedramon's were the Deep Savers. And then they are left with Machinedramon and Piedmon. And then they have to go and deal with Machinedramon. Machinedramon has his Metal Empire, which are all these metal and robotic type Digimon that are all under his control. And this is when Kari gets sick, so they actually have to go and get their way to the city where Machinedramon lives, where he reigns from. Again, he's a Machinedramon, so he's kind of there's something to do with Greymon that allows him, Metal Greymon or Greymon, whatever, that allows him to be able to do extra damage to Dragon or Dra type Mon, that allows him to do damage to, Greymon type Digimon. And what ends up happening is, Tai and Izzy have to go and they have to find the medicine for Kari. And Tai, of course, gets very angry with Izzy because when Izzy was, trying to find where the medicine was, he unfortunately left a trail that allowed Machine Dramon's henchmen to try to find him. And Machine Dramon has some different type of Digimon working for him. One of them is a Megidramon, who is kind of it's a giant dragon-ish type Digimon. I think this is, I don't remember, because there's Machine Dramon and then there's Gigadramon, and he has both of them working for him. And Machine Dramon lives in this giant city that looks a lot like different variations of like modern cities. Like there's a Colosseum there. I think I saw there was an Eiffel Tower there. There's a bunch of other type, landmarks that are representative of like other parts of the real world that ended up there, that are represented there. And what ends up happening is there's Megadramon and there's Gigadramon, which I like both of them. They're both giant kind of dragon Digimon. There's Hagarumon, who's just kind of, I think if I remember correctly, this is like this just like gear looking type Digimon, that kind of helps keep things running under Machine Dramon. And then he has large numbers of Mechanorimon, who are these cyber type Digimon that you can put someone inside of them. And then of course there's Tankmon. He has a large number of these that they can do, that they look just like giant tanks. And then he also has a Waru Manzemon working for him, who is the evolved form of Manzemon, who is this very nice cuddly teddy bear Digimon. Waru Manzemon is not a nice cuddly teddy bear Digimon. He is very mean and very evil, and he was using the Numamon underneath the city in order to power the city. And this is, when Kari and Sora and, Tai and Izzy were able to get the medicine for Kari, and they get it to them, and then they get separated again from Sora and TK and Kari, and Sora gets the medicine to Kari, and this is when Kari ends up glowing, of course, and she frees the Numamon, and then she attacks, Garamon digivolves into Anjumon, is able to destroy Waru Manzemon, or is able to turn into Anjumon and then destroy Waru Manzemon. And then they end up in the underground sewer system area, where Tai and Izzy end up interacting with Andromon again, who is of course their friend from back on File Island. And they end up dealing with, then they have to fight Machine Dramon himself. And Machine Dramon is defeated by War Greymon. And what had happened though is all the Numamon try to attack Machine Dramon, because he tried to hurt Kari, and this trigger thing of Kari is upset that all the Numamon died because they were trying to protect her because she freed them, and of course they call her Queen Kari. Don't ask. That's never 100% explained. It's never 100% explained what this thing inside of Kari is that keeps like possessing her and making gives her all that power, unless it's just like her inner light coming out. But we have, Machine Dramon is there, and then War Greymon destroys him and defeats him. And then, of course, the technology type section of Spiral Mountain disappears. And then from there, Tai and his group are making their way up Spiral Mountain. The rest of the way up Spiral Mountain to go and try to fight Piedmon, who has a castle on top of Spiral Mountain. And, once Machine Dramon is destroyed, then all of, the technology section or whatever that's represented on Spiral Mountain disappears. And, the rest of the Digidestined that are kind of around can see this, because, on the ground, there's, all this monotone area where there's, nothing that can grow, nothing new is growing. At this point in time is when Mimi and her group are gathering up their, their Digimon friends, their allies. This is when Joe goes off to try to find Matt. And Tai and his group end up at the top of Spiral Mountain, where they end up near Piedmon's castle, mansion thing. Now, Piedmon's henchmen are called Nightmare Soldiers. And the main one that we see is Lady Devimon. And of course, as I mentioned in several of the videos, particularly the Kari one, of course, Lady Devimon and Anjuamon do not get along. Piedmon sends Lady Devimon to go and try and deal with the Digidestin and try to destroy them. And her and Anjuamon basically get into a digital world version of a cat fight, where an angel and a devil are literally fighting and slapping each other and clawing at each other. And, Mega Kabuterimon is there, like, trying to help Anjuamon, and, and then, of course, Anjuamon is able to defeat Lady Devimon, of course, in the end. And we have, like, Kari and Sora in the background just, like, staring at her like she looks like a witch. And, like, Izzy and Ty are just, like, watching the battle. And Izzy's like, I don't know if I should be watching this. And then Kari's in the background going, go, go, go! Which is just funny to watch. And of course, what ends up happening is Ty sends Sora off to go and find Sora and TK off to go and find Matt and the rest of the group. And this is when, Sora and Matt have to deal with their kind of, depression area and stuff like that for the cave and the pit and everything. And, they find them and then they come back. And then, Anjuamon is able to defeat Lady Devimon. And then, of course, this is when, Piedmon shows up. And he starts kind of just toying with Ty and Wargreymon. And as I've gone over multiple times with several of the Digidestin videos already, Piedmon then, as the Digidestin show up, he starts turning them all into keychains one by one or in groups. And eventually it's down to just Kari and TK and Anjuamon. And Anjuamon is still trying to fight, and it's not going so well. And of course, TK got a hold of, via help from Sora and Gomamon, he got a hold of Matt's keychain, and this helps TK awaken his crest of hope, and this gets us Magna Anjuamon, which is then able to heal all the Digidestin and turn them back from being keychains. And then, of course, all of them working together along with their friends, because Mimi shows up with the rest of their Digimon friends with like Ogremon and Frigimon and Marimon and such like that. They all show up, and then all of them working together are able to destroy Piedmon. And just because he basically ties rather well into the Dark Masters, I will also be talking about Apocalymon now, or Apocalymon, whatever one you want to call it. And what ends up happening is all of the rest of the the last bit of Spiral Mountain vanishes, and it's just like this wire frame holding up this like cliff top of a mountain thing where Piedmon's castle was. And Jedi sends them a message that says, oh, there was something else. There was something beyond this like firewall. That's this other horrible thing. And then he gets cut off, and then this is when like the Digidestin gets sucked into this empty black nothingness. And this is when they're introduced to Apocalymon, who is this, he's what he's referred to. He's described as how is it they describe him? He's made of the leftovers, the parts that weren't wanted, all the sadness and hate and everything. And he has like this, he's like this giant hexagonish type thing that then has like this tiny little guy on top, and he's got all these claws and everything that come off, and he de-digivolves each of the Digidestin's Digimon, and he destroys each of their crests, and he's like ranting to them the entire time. He's like this whole speech type thing. It's probably part of the speech will be like the quote that I use on the end of it. He's like, I was like, I am the ultimate evil Digimon, complete with hot and cold running water. Even when I'm a kid, I'm like, why and why? But he has like this whole rant of like, why do I always have to wait and then eat the crust of the pizza? Or just told us a whole rant about stuff. And like all the Digidestin are just like, he could just ask to join. I know. Let him alone, let him rant, it's fine. But so all the Digidestin are having to deal with him, and of course then as a way of demoralizing them even more, demotivating them even more, he digitizes all of them. He basically disintegrates them, And he, and then of course this is when the Digidestined are all, when they're figuring out of, oh, like each of their crest is actually, it's like Kari's light is from her, but it's also for everyone. Matt gets his power not from his friendship just inside of him, but like the friendship all around him. And like Sora, the same thing with her love, and Ty with his courage, and Izzy with his knowledge, and Mimi with her sincerity, and Joe with his reliability, and TK with his hope. That it's not just from them, it's also what they have from everyone else around them. Those bonds and their bonds with each other and with their Digimon, and even with their own family or their other friends. So we have that moment there, and of course this allows them to kind of reconfigure themselves, and then of course they all fully digivolve their Digimon to whatever highest level they've gotten to at this point in time, and then of course they work together perfectly in order to defeat Apocalymon. But Apocalymon also has this power to manipulate or have these various types of attack. He has his darkness zone, which is deletes his opponents, which is what he used to like delete all of them. He has reverse digivolve, which is where he made all the Digimon go back to their their rookie forms, or their in Gadamon's case, their champion form. There's total annihilation, which is also referred to as the Grand Death Big Bang, which detonates his own body with enough force to wipe out the entire dimensions. There's another one that I cannot pronounce that performs a physical attack with his tentacle claws, and then he has Death Claw, Death Claw, which is just attacks using his claws, and then he has his copied attacks that he has from when he has like copied the data or devoured the data of these other evil Digimon that they fought. So he has like River of Power, which is transforms one of his claws into like Metal Seedramon's head, and then he can release that type of power that he had. And then he has Crimson Lightning, which is his other claw turns into like the upper part of like Myotismon's body, so he can release that power. And then he also has Giga Cannon, which is from Machine Dramon. So Claw transforms into Machine Dramon, and he can fire that. And then he has Death Claw again, which is transforms to Devimon, and he's able to attack with that. And then he has Virus Grenades, which he uses from turning into like Datamon, and then uses that against them. So he's able to use a bunch of those different types of attacks against the Digidestined. So it's like all these attacks from these other Digimon that they've already defeated, but they also already kind of know how to, attack. They also kind of already know how to avoid these attacks or how they're going to work. And then, of course, they're all able to work together, and then via their crests from their Digivices, kind of their crests still working, even though they, don't technically physically have them anymore. They still have the power inside of them. They're able to make this like cube box prison that like traps Apocalymon inside of it, and he tries to, blow himself up, but that doesn't work. And traps himself, and they trap him inside of the box, and then the box prevents the explosion, from destroying the dimension, prevents that from happening. And they are then able to defeat him, and then results in, you can hear the dog barking in the background again, this results in them being able to this results in the digital world now being able to be, reborn and reconfigured. And, it starts with File Island and Primary Village, so all the Digimon can start coming back. And, of course, this is when we get kind of the happy ending of the original series, which, we get the picture of, like, them in Primary Village, which, like, all of their friends and everything, which is a nice picture, and I like the picture. And then, of course, this is when they have to go back home. And, of course, Jedi and his kleptomaniac thing when it comes to stealing train cars. And I think it's also mentioned, we don't really see anything else of Apocalymon, and we do see the Dark Masters again later, because in Digimon Adventure Tri, when we get the backstories for Diego Nishijima and Maki Himakawa, the two agents that are in charge of keeping an eye on the kids, we actually learn that, as I said before, they are two previous Digidestined that were some of the original Digidestined. And they had their own Digimon, of course, and them and like 3 of their friends had to fight against the Dark Masters. And in that process, their Digimon actually were the ones that were chosen to become the 4 guardians of the digital world, the harmonious ones, or the whatever you want to refer to them as. There's a Zulongmon, they're all based on like the cardinal directions in Japan. There's the Azure Dragon, the White Tiger, the Turtle, and the Sparrow. And those will get their own video. Probably more when I get to, probably a little bit more expanded on that when I get to like the Tamer season, because that's where we really get to see them. We only get like some glimpses of them in Digimon Adventure Tri, because 4 of the 5 Digimon from that original Digidestined group were turned into the 4 harmonious ones, and those will get their own video when I talk about Nishijima and Himekawa in their own video. So I'll a little more expand on that, but they have to fight the Dark Masters there. And then, of course, when the Digidestined return to the digital world, they have to deal with Dark Genai, who is, of course, there. And he actually has, like, a Machinedramon that's working for him. And I think they actually have to deal with a Metal Seedramon as well, that are under Dark Genai's control. They don't have to deal with Puppetmon or Piedmon, as far as I remember, but they do have to deal with them. But we don't really get any other reference any other times for like the Dark Masters showing up. They're referenced, of course, in regards to Apocalymon stated that, like, yeah, the Dark Masters were around, but I couldn't show up until after they were destroyed. And then, of course, we also find out that like a piece of Apoclymon's data is what actually ended up becoming part of Meikumon, which is why there's that virus that unfortunately Meikumon can spread, which just makes you feel very sad for Meikumon. And that's just, Meikumon, as I said, Meikumon and Meiko will get their own video later on, when I finish with the, season 2 kids and I get to the miscellaneous Digidestined, they'll get their own video. So like Apoclymon's data lives on in Meikumon in that case, which results in the virus that, of course, infects all the Digimon. But, that doesn't make you hate Meikumon, because it's not her choice. It's something inside of her is making her do this. She doesn't want to actually hurt Meiko or hurt her friends or whatever. She doesn't want to cause all of this problem. But that's what we have for the rest of the evil Digimon. Although I do still have to do the Aboromon line, which I'm probably just going to get done and out of the way with now. As I said, I backlog videos because with my work schedule, sometimes it is hard to be able to like record something in the morning, edit it, and then get it posted by the end of the day, or get it posted before I go to work, depending on how long the video is. So that's what I got for the Dark Masters and Apocalymon. So I thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye! Do you think it's fair that I should have to live with all this agony? Why should you get to laugh while I am forced to cry? Why do you get to taste the best that life has to offer, while all I do is choke on its leftovers? Answer me this. Why do all of you get the pizza while I get the crust?